Welcome to The Aspiring Kryptonians, a podcast for Superman fans, hosted by Superman fans and focused around all things, you guessed it, Superman. After all, we are aspiring Kryptonians. From comics, TV, film and animation, each week we discuss our thoughts on the latest releases, news and even some retrospective reviews. So without further ado, let's get the show on the road. Hello and welcome to episode 35 of the Aspiring Kryptonians podcast with me, Tasmin, Dave and Sam. How are you guys doing?
Hi there, doing great.
Good. We originally planned to do this episode at the beginning of the month, but life got in the way and now we're having to do it at the end of the month. But I think the end of the month is a good time just to consolidate all our thoughts on everything, don't you?
Definitely.
Cool. So this episode we're going to be talking about...
So, you know, it's just a good time.
Sorry, that cut out then, Dave. What did you say?
Sorry. I said, news and stuff has released. There's a lot of stuff that's happened this month that now we can cover. So.
Yeah, a lot has happened this month. So in this episode, we're going to cover our favourites of 2022, which seems like so long ago now. We're going to be wrapping up some of the series of 2022, so Dark Crisis, DC Mech, and Son of Kal-El. We're going to talk about Action Comics 1050 and 1051 because they are the game changers of the Superman comics at the moment. We're going to talk about the latest or the upcoming Superman series. So things like Adventures of John Kent, all the ones that were announced as part of the Dawn of DC initiative, which I can't wait for, to be honest. I don't think I've ever been this excited in comics for a while. And of course, we're going to talk about the latest DC news, which I think we'll probably start with because I think everyone's got a lot to say about what's happened recently and the whole DC thing. So we'll start with the most heartbreaking one, which is Henry Cavill's exit as Superman. So who wants to go first? Because I'm sure we will have a lot to say about this.
You can start us off, Dave.
Oh, okay.
I could.
Going in the deep end.
I'll jump in feet first. Fine. No, it really is heartbreaking. I mean, to have Black Adam happen, have him show up, have Warner Brothers allow him to announce that he's in the suit going forward, all these different projects and happening and everything, and then just a few weeks later have the rug just ripped right out from under us. It just seems like, why? I don't understand. Timing is what it is, I guess, and they can't see forward to know that the changes that were happening at Warner Brothers were happening, but it does seem like it's a huge missed opportunity to at least get one more out of them while they're setting up this new DC universe that they're wanting to do. At least that way it would appease most everybody, I think. But yeah, it's a shame. It really is.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. It's I think I would have. Before Black Adam, I was hopeful that we would get to see Henry Cavill again as Superman, but then I was kind of thinking, it's not going to happen now. It's too late. But yeah, it's just to see him there in the suit, how excited he was, how excited the fans were. It's just a huge missed opportunity. Like Warner Brothers could have easily made another Superman film with Henry Cavill before resetting everything, and they would have made a lot of money out of it. I would have gone to see it God knows how many times. I'm sure a lot of other people felt the same way. The reaction from the Restore the Snyderverse sort of hashtag community, that reaction was, I think it covered pretty much how everybody felt about it. But I think, there are lengths were taken by certain people. So some people like ourselves, we're upset about the whole news, but we're willing, as Superman fans, we know the character lives on. Henry Cavill was a great Superman and he always will be, and he's always going to be my favorite Superman. But there are going to be great Superman films going forward. And I do feel sorry a little bit for James Gunn because I feel like he's got it in the neck since this announcement quite a lot.
Yeah. A lot of things, like going outside like the original like DC release, like DC's movies always kind of felt like a rickety bridge since like 2017. Like by now, like not even like the Snyderverse, just like all like the original projects they had, like by now, like if everything like went to plan, we would have seen the Flash movie like 20 times over. Like it would have been out in like 3 years ago. I think there was a new Gods movie in there somewhere. There was like a lot of plans. I mean, sometime, and they were absolutely subject to change. I felt like they were like changing every day. It's just weird. It's just like the whole business of movies, and that's always like kind of why I like the creative like force behind comics better, because it just feels like it's less of a business and it's more of like people who care.
Yeah,
and there's like independent movie studios like that, and that's why like I don't know if James Gunn or not was like a part of like the decision, because I'm sure they were talking about it prior to him. But he like comes from like a career like working for Troma, which is like a super independent film studio. Like he got to start working for there, and the guy who's in charge of it, Lloyd Kaufman, still works there to this day. And he's always like speaking out against Hollywood. He's like, oh, we don't do what what the big bad studios do. We like try to give people what they want while also creating new like artists and helping them find their stride. And it's kind of and yeah, it's just like makes you think about the movie business as a whole. But
yeah. But I think with the whole James Gunn thing, I don't think he was part of the decision to bring Henry Cavill back, because I think he joined at a really awkward time in terms of where the DC Films, or DC Studios, I think it's called now, was going in that direction. So all these decisions were made to bring Henry Cavill back, and they hadn't really taken into consideration his actual plan. So obviously, I think I admire him for sticking to his gut, no pun intended, sticking to his guns, because he knows that he's annoyed a lot of fans by not wanting Henry Cavill to come back as Superman, but at the same time, I do kind of appreciate the fact that he's actually stuck to that and he's not gone back like, oh, actually, okay, we'll do that. So he's obviously got a really good plan in place, I hope, for Superman especially. He said it's a big part of his plan going forwards. He's casting for a younger Superman, I think I read, and it's not going to be an origin story, but it's going to be Superman in his younger years, which I'm quite excited to see, because in the Superman films that we've got so far, we see him really young, we see him as a teenager, and then we see him as the sort of, I suppose the Christopher Reeve one, he was kind of getting there. And that was some of his first times as Superman, and same with Man of Steel, really. But I want to see those younger years where he makes those mistakes and what makes him want to be the Superman that he is in the end.
It's cool. A lot of people just like when it comes to young Superman, there's a lot you can do. Like when Max Landis, I think it was Max Landis, did that American Alien, story. Really good. Like we never saw like young Clark Kent like that at all. And it definitely, and also it rightfully accumulated him becoming Superman, so it was still like done right. It was just cool seeing what you could do with like a young Clark.
Yeah, there's loads of stories that you could do, and I think every time he posts something, so he's like reading, I think one of the ones was All-Star Superman at one point, everyone is kind of assuming that he's gonna bring that to the big screen. So I think he's read parts of Kingdom Come, and people are like, oh my god, you're doing Kingdom Come. And he has actually said that he would bring, that he's willing to work with Henry Cavill in the future. So it could be that we get the new younger Superman films going forwards, and then at some point it jumps to the Kingdom Come and we see the older Superman Henry Cavill could portray that. Perhaps, not saying that Henry Cavill's old, of course, which he definitely isn't, but I think that's
Yeah, I was just gonna say that is like 30s, like late 30s, mid 30s, really considered old for a superhero.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, that's where the age is usually put them at, especially Superman and Batman. They're like, no, they're in their 30s or whatever. It's like, but no one.
Yeah, and now they have like teenage sons, and it kind of makes sense for them to be a little bit older. What I would love to see, though, and what they should, perhaps this is something that James Gunn is keeping under wraps, but the young Superman, I want that to be John Kent. I want to see John Kent in live action, and then keep Henry Cavill as the dad Superman. That would be good to see.
That would work, yeah.
But speaking, well, actually, while we're on the subject, part of the next few things that I was going to talk about, but what are you? So James Gunn and Peter Safran are set to release some of their plans for DC Studios this month, which they're kind of leaving it quite late, seeing there's only 2 days left of January. So I hope we do actually get some announcements very soon. But what would you guys want to see from that announcement?
When it comes to like new superhero movies, like, especially now, I don't like watching trailers. I just I'll read the announcement slates and everything, but then from there, like I'll keep up with the casting news and whatnot. Or like I'll see clips here and there, but overall, like since like I want to say 2018, like when it comes to like movies in general, I try to avoid like trailers unless it's like a book adaptation.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely read like the full slate. I mean, it seems like I don't know if this is a rumor or not, but I heard he's trying to connect like video games and movies and TVs, like try to have like them have like a uniform thing, like a uniform like continuity going. Because I think that like the new like Suicide Squad games expect to be like kind of the last one to be standalone until like we're going to be seeing a lot more video games tying in. So I'm interested in the video game now because James Gunn does have some experience with video games. Lollipop Chainsaw, where you're like a cheerleader with like a chainsaw. He wrote that game. It's a fun game.
I've never heard of it, but it sounds fun.
Hack and slash zombie game on the PlayStation 2. It's so fun.
But I also forget that he did Brightburn. He was part of.
I love Brightburn. Brightburn was great,
and I really enjoyed that. It was like obviously a different take on Superman, but it essentially was a Superman origin story or. Superman origin story gone wrong. But at the end of that, there was kind of a hint that there was going to be more of that because they introduced, I think they said that Wonder Woman and Aquaman and some of the other members of the Justice League or similar were about. So that would have been pretty cool to see. But with the whole connecting all of the things, I don't know if it could be good, but it kind of narrows.
The end product would be something like the end product would be like a Crisis on Infinite Earths event. Where like he tries to do it justice more than the CW did. But the CW one was pretty cool. Saw the Titans and Doom Patrol and that one.
Aside from some of the CGI, but I just mean like I like having stuff going on in comics that isn't going on in the films, and it's nice to have all those different kinds of stories. And if they're all sort of joined into one, it could
literally even the comics alone. I think comics like no matter what like mixed media does, like video games, TV shows does, comics always have like their own creative like force. Like they're always going to be doing their own thing, which is great.
Good.
Well, especially since we've just got the true Infinite Earths back, you know, after all this time to not tap into that with the comics and video games and stuff, I think would again be a missed opportunity to explore all these different ways to tell the story.
And just to bring up one of the comments from Morgan Sadler, Brightburn was definitely more Ultraman, definitely.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to say it's more like an Earth 3 origin story.
Yeah.
That's like
it had the powers of Superman, and that's what I meant.
I just love seeing Brightburn in juxtaposition of like Freddy Krueger and like Jason Voorhees. Like he flies, he has super strength, he could destroy the world if he wanted to. It's like you've never seen a monster killer like that. I hope they do more. It was great.
Yeah.
And
they were supposed to. I don't know whatever happened to that.
Say that again, Dave?
They were supposed to do more. I think there were some sequels that were in the works, and I don't really know what happened to that.
Yeah. Well, perhaps that could be some of his announcements for the future of DC Studios. I'm not sure.
Definitely like make a deal with Shudder. Shudder is like a streaming service for like horror movies, and they've just been shooting up. They've just been going off with like their original like releases. They've been doing really good. You can absolutely do something with that.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out. I do love a horror film. So, Dave, what are you expecting or hoping to hear from the James Gunn announcements?
I really don't know. Like, I usually kind of keep my hopes and expectations pretty low, so that way, if it's disappointing, I'm not that disappointed. I mean, it's kind of a pessimistic way of looking at things, but
it makes sense, though.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, as long as they actually really try to stay true to a cohesive storyline and don't sway from that. Not to bring up the other side of things, but that's what made Marvel work up through the first three Avengers movies was they didn't care what they got in the theaters. They were telling the story. And Warner Brothers were still making movies the old way, where it's like, well, if the movie does well, we'll make a sequel. And hopefully Gunn, and I can never remember the other guy's name.
Peter Safran.
Peter.
Hopefully they keep that route where it doesn't matter what's going to happen box office wise. We're going forward, and that way they can roll out things in a more. We don't have to wait like 4 or 5 years for the next thing and stuff like that. So as long as they stay to that, I think we'll get some good stuff. Gunn's proven himself. I mean, the Suicide Squad movies, the Peacemaker series was not what I expected, but was phenomenal. So so I think it's in good hands. It's just, it's just kind of like, well, what now? Where are we going?
Yeah, going back to the thing you said about Marvel Studios as to why they're so good, I would love for DC to be able to do that, and obviously, like I said, stay true to the characters and just have that whole universe that's interlinked. You can tell stories about the solo characters, you can link them together, like in Justice League, Legion of Superheroes, whatever it may be. Just bring it all together and make it. Because I'm sick and tired of having the argument with people that DC is better than Marvel films, but they're completely separate. And I would love for them to be quite similar, just so we can see what potential DC Comics characters have in that sense. And I'm not saying the DC films that we've had are bad, because I think each and every one of them. I don't think there's one that I don't like, but I think that's mostly down to the characters and how much I love the characters. So I don't think, for me, you can't do wrong when it comes to Superman. Or if it's Superman, I'm going to watch it. But yeah, I just hope they play it justice. For me, what I'm hoping for is, I want to, in the announcement, I want to see some clarification as to who's in and who's out, because obviously we know Henry Cavill isn't Superman. They've kind of said Gal Gadot isn't Wonder Woman anymore. But I just want clarification over that, because that was a little bit of a mess. Aquaman, he's involved because he's posted all of these. Well, Jason Momoa has posted all these videos on social media saying that he's really excited. But does that mean that they're continuing with Aquaman, or is it that he's going to be Lobo or a completely different character? So I just want some clarification around who's in and who's out, because James Gunn was involved with Peacemaker, so I'm assuming that Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad are who they are at the moment. I can't imagine him making all these films in series and then suddenly changing his mind as to them being the best people to portray those characters. I want some casting news, but I think it's going to be too early. I think at the moment we're just going to get a vision of what's to come. But I've seen all these fan casts of Superman and the young Superman, and I cannot remember for the life of me their names, but I think one of them is called Wolfgang, and he really does look the part. But to me, he looks like John Kent. So it's just little things like that. I just want some clarification. And there was previous rumors that there was going to be a Supergirl film from sort of to follow after The Flash with I can't think of her name, Sasha Cal, playing the character. So there was news that she was going to have her own solo movie. So if that carries on, I'd love to see some news about that, or confirmation that that's actually going ahead. And yeah, I just want to see some news about the Superman film. I want to see what kind of direction they're going to be going, and things like that. But yeah, it's exciting, and I hope it does actually happen this month, because I think everyone's got their hopes up. Every time I log into Twitter, there is people who are like, "Come on, James Gunn, where's your announcement?" So we're getting impatient. All right, so let's wrap up some of the comic series, because there were some great series that have just finished. So DC Mech and Superman Son of Kal-El in particular. We'll start with DC Mech. Actually, no, let's talk about Dark Crisis, because that was quite important. So that was written by Joshua Williamson with art by Daniel Sampere, who we had on the show sometime last year, I think.
Over a year.
Say again?
Over a year ago.
Over a year. Oh God, time's going so quickly. So with Dark Crisis, I didn't actually read it. I think I read the first 2 issues, and I've kind of picked up what happened, because every time you read one of the tie-in issues, it kind of explains, or briefly explains, what happened. So do you guys want to take the floor with that one, because I don't actually know what to talk about?
I could. Yeah, I read it. I reviewed it. I think I read a couple of the tie-ins, but not all of them. I was mainly just sticking to the main series, because it all started after the Justice League quote unquote died in issue 75. I think that it was like a year ago at this point. And Dark Crisis is really more of like a story of, the Titans and like the next gen heroes, rather than the Justice League is still in it. They like make appearance in like awesome tie-ins, and they like come back from like individual Earths that they're like imprisoned on. The main villain is Pariah. He's like one of the guys from the original Crisis, who used to be like a villain, and then he's like corrupted by a dark force. And it's definitely a universe spanning thing. it's neat. It's all about like legacy heroes stepping up. The main character, without a doubt, is Dick Grayson. And for a while, like, because I know he's super popular in the comics, he gets a lot of readers. And honestly, with like Titans and like reading some of like his current books by Tom Taylor, I see why. It's like it's a fun character. He like walks like that tightrope between like almost like legacy character and classic, because Robin's been around since like what, the 40s. So he's technically, is he a legacy character? Is he not? Like, it's always like neat to see. And his fight with like Deathstroke is like one like years in the making. The original Titans are all there. There's some great moments with like the Justice League, like their tie-ins on like the individual Earths their side. And I think we did a review for the Superman one, where it's like him and like John and like a Batman, Robin like esque like costume, like doing like sidekick and superhero things, which is pretty neat.
I think
it's cool. And also like, yeah, it does set the ground rules for like the new like kind of DC like multiverse.
Yeah.
There's one of the tie-ins, the one, I think it's I forget what it's called, but it's the one where the Flash fights the Anti-Monitor, which is also like again like a callback to the original Crisis event. You just see all the infinite Earths, like you see all the different comic stories, even the movies. Like you see like Nicholson Joker and like Keaton Batman in it, with like pretty accurate likenesses. So it's like it's also like a celebration of just DC just embracing all of like the continuities. And like you could like call them continuities, but when the way I see them, it's like celebrating like the creators behind them. Like when you include like Nicholson's Joker, like, oh, you're celebrating Tim Burton's like take on it. When you include the Kingdom Come Superman, that's Mark Waid. When you include the Batman Beyond Superman, that's Bruce Timm. Bruce Timm, yeah. It's neat. It's just like it's almost like a celebration of creators and like characters. There's some fun action scenes in there too as well.
Yeah, I did read a few. I think it was the first two that I read, but then because of all the when there's tie-ins involved, it just completely throws me. So I didn't know where to go. So I think going back to Nightwing, I have to say he is probably my favorite member of the Bat family. He's much more interesting to me than Batman. I think he's a great character, and I really like the whole relationship that he's got with John, and that John goes to him for help and vice versa. Hello to Tevia Smoker. Hello. Yeah, if you're watching live, feel free to get involved. If we're talking about a comic that you've read, feel free to let us know your opinion, and we'll get your comments in as well. So Dave, what did you think of Dark Crisis?
Well, sorry. I kind of got involved in comics shortly after the original Crisis of Infinite Earths, which just tells my age a little bit. But so I was really enjoying Joshua Williamson, and he's kind of proved this before. If for those that have followed his work in DC, he really picks apart the whole continuity of everything and throws it all together in a way that makes sense. And I felt like the Dark Crisis was his way of going, hey, why separate anything? Like, let's just bring it all together. Let's just go back to having all these stories that we can be allowed to tell in a way that would make sense, and maybe won't ruffle as much feathers because, well, that's not the way I want it to go, that kind of thing. So I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the little throw-ins that he put in from the original Crisis, like the what do they call them, the little antennas that they had at the beginning of Crisis of Infinite Earths. Power Girl and Huntress run into them and are like, oh no, not these things again, So the Shadow Demons make an appearance at some point. And it all kind of hit too around the time of the passing of George Perez. So it just kind of made the whole thing just feel more weighted. And hopefully it's something that the writers and the direction of the editorial staff and stuff don't just throw away in the next couple of years for the new fangled Crisis of whatever thing and all the stuff, So,
and speaking of
it was really good, really well put together, and all the tie-ins kind of made sense and gave you a little bit more nuggets of what's happening. Yeah, it was good. It was really fun.
Yeah, and speaking of the George Perez era and homage, wasn't it the final cover of Dark Crisis where they did that big homage cover where all the different artists did a few different characters in his style, which that was amazing. I think Dark Crisis, I don't think I got all of the issues like physically. I read them
behind me actually,
but I did buy that one because it's because of what it meant. The homage behind it was just a nice thought. Just to go through some comments while Sam finds his issue. So Philly Man, hello to you too. I'll come. Tevi Smoker is in this conversation here. So his thoughts is personally that he found Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths to be so disappointing, especially with all the tie-ins mean and nothing. Dark Crisis on Young Justice was so bad and a complete train wreck. I did actually read.
I read that. I would have to disagree.
I missed the Young Justice one.
Yeah, I did. I didn't read all of it. I read 2 issues, and that was where was it Connor Kent and Robin were with? Was it Wonder Girl?
Yeah, it was Cassie.
And
it was like the original like '90s like 3 of Young Justice. Yeah.
What I read was all right, but I didn't actually carry it on, so I can't really comment on whether that was good or not. But I think I didn't read all of the tie-ins, and I didn't read all of Crisis on Infinite Earths, but I think it did mean something because it's led to this whole Dawn of the DC thing. It's led to the Lazarus Planet and all of this stuff that's going on at the moment.
But yeah, the Young Justice book was kind of there. So what happened to the Justice League? Everyone got sent to different worlds separately to keep them apart. Where Young Justice got, the original 3, Tim, Connor, and Bart, got sent to a world kind of the same way by a different person. And they bring in like Mr. Mitzi's son to mess with them. And it's just kind of this, it throws back all these problematic themes that happened in the 90s with the sexuality of comic characters and whatnot, like being over sexualized, and just question like where they are now in their lives. Connor kind of trying to figure out, hey, I died, and then Bart's like, yeah, I did too. So what? So there's these things that that kind of come out to try to help, I think, bring these characters to be more relevant as we're going to go forward, because they kind of were forgotten. And this, I thought the book was kind of a celebration of them in a way to make them, be able to fit now into where DC is heading with them. So I enjoyed it, but I can see why people wouldn't have.
Yeah, but how you describe it sounds like it would just be like a really good standalone story, because it seems like it only shares like the themes with Dark Crisis. Like I don't think we see them in like the ending issues or anything. Like we really don't know that. It's like a good setup. I mean, it's like a really good like story with like the themes and whatnot. I think
it brings Cassie in a way to like, she kind of reconciles her own involvement with them, and even Arrowette's, which was one of my favorites back then, and she kind of just said, wrote them off. Like she was.
It was just the placement with the Crisis event that made it seem weird, because that sounds like an amazing standalone like story that could be a Young Justice like in the main series.
It was a good reintroduction. I felt like
neat.
And I just had flashbacks when you were talking about the sexualization of comic characters, because when I read the issue that I read of that Young Justice series, I think they were fighting. I can't remember the name of the character, but she has huge boobs, and she's like constantly trying to censor it. And he's like, "I don't like
stuff." Yeah.
How did she beat us before?
I remember that. But that was And they were like, "Oh, they're bigger than before," or something like that. I think
that's fun.
Yeah. I think with that kind of I think with the Young Justice Dark Crisis thing, I think the reason it probably felt so mismatched is because Dark Crisis was quite serious and this one was quite playful, and the two sort of coming together just maybe seemed weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
Perhaps. But we'll move. What have you guys got anything else to say on Dark Crisis?
That's pretty much it. You can read all my reviews on all the main issues.
Yeah, if you want to know what Sam thinks, you can read back on all the Dark Crisis reviews that we've done on the website. Okay, then we'll move on to DC Mech, because this is one that I was really excited about. We spoke to Kenny Porter, who's the writer, and Valdemar Rivas, who is the artist. He taught us how to draw his version of Superman, and yeah, it was a great chat. So if you're interested in that series and you've read it, go back and have a listen to our interview because it was great fun. But yeah, this issue was just, well, this series was just a great mix of everything that geeks love. Power Rangers, anime, superheroes. It was just a really interesting take on all of those characters. We saw Superman make mistakes. We saw a completely different version of the whole DC universe and how they started what's going on. Like they use these giant robots as suits to fight rather than fighting themselves. Yeah, it was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a whole lot of fun. I enjoyed every single issue of that series. It was just, and every time it was just like I flew through it. I was like, no, got to slow down, got to take this all in, and read it again. So I actually read like probably 2 or 3 times in one sitting. It just flowed. It just like, because again, kind of selfless plug, but my reviews on that too is like, this is begging to be animated. Like it's just the way Valdemar Rivas drew this was just, you could see it. You could see it move. It was so good. So fun.
Yeah. I'm still like reading it. Like it's coming out steadily on the DC Infinite app. That's how I read most of the comics that I'm not like mainlining right now. Helps me save on print stuff too. But yeah, I'm getting through that. Like I'm reading it in tandem with Jurassic League.
Oh, that was good too, actually.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, they're both kind of releasing in tandem on the app, and it's just fun seeing the different takes on them. And again, like you said, Dave, it's very, very stylized. Like that's the best part of them. It's all stylized. It's neat.
Yeah, and I love all the because we see all the different character designs as well. They're all totally different to what we've seen before. We've seen the new suits of Kal-El has a new suit. He has a new mech suit. You got Wonder Woman's got a mech suit. Everyone's got a mech suit, and they're all really, really well thought out as well. Because if you get the variant covers, that kind of explains everything that you need to know about that particular suit. You know how high it is, how big it is, what weapons they have, what the weapons are run by, and just so much thought has gone into the designs of the characters. And what was it? There's 6 issues. Was it 6 or 8 issues? Yeah, 6 issues. They've put too much work in for 6 issues. We need a 6.
We need more.
Yeah, we need more. And like you said, I would love to see this animated because Valdemar's artwork is, like I said, you can just see it being an animated series, film, whatever. I'd watch it, and I think a lot of other people would enjoy it as well. So Andrew G says that he picked up DC Mech on a whim after seeing Kenny win round robin and was glad for the love letter to the DCU. It makes me really excited to see his Superboy. Any chance you'll interview him again? Possibly. So yes, we'll talk about the Superboy series coming up in a second. But yeah, maybe when I think he did actually say that he would come back on and talk to us about Superboy. So a little bit closer, we will definitely speak to him and get some more information. But yeah, I love DC Mech. I love the Power Rangers. It was like Megazords kind of thing. The only thing that was missing that we didn't see them all sort of join together at the end and take on this massive.
Oh, that would have been wild. Yeah,
I guess that probably would have been copyrighted.
I don't think so. Maybe.
No, it's been done forever. Like even back in the 80s with Voltron. Yeah. So
I think anyone has the copyright to something like that though.
Well, Kenny, if you're listening, there's an idea for volume 2.
We need a Voltron Justice Squadron. There you go.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, the variant covers were pretty good as well. So, like I said, Dan Mora, I think it was, did all the character designs. I think they were like the blueprints. They were amazing. Yeah, it was just fun, and I really liked I think, if I remember correctly, Martha and Jonathan Kent aren't his parents as such. Like in this moment in time, he's just landed. He's probably been there for like a week or so, 2 weeks, and she literally builds him an engine, does she not? And he used with his new suit. And I was just like,
3D
from stitching the Superman crest onto a blanket or a cape, and she's making engines.
Yeah, it was great. It was just to see the whole world reshaped in this mech style of life. I mean, even the villains. Like the first time you see Flash, he's fighting like Captain Cold, who's also got a mech. So it's like, how is this working? You know, but you just forget it. You just go, you know, just read it and love it.
Yeah, just enjoy it. So hello to Slas from France. Take care of yourself as well. And thank you for listening. So let's move on to Son of Kal-El. So there's far too much to talk about, so I'm going to condense it quite a lot, because a lot has happened in that series. I know a lot of people have thoughts about that series and the characters within it. But just as an overview, it's written by Tom Taylor with art by Cian Tormey and Ruairi Coleman. I think it was a great series. It really gave John his own sense of identity. So it's easy to deem him as Superman's son in every other comic. And this really gave him his own personality, his own responsibilities, his own supporting characters and villains. I loved it. What did you guys think?
I think it was all right series. I have like one of the convention exclusive covers of it, so it's pretty near and dear to me.
Yeah,
it was neat. Like, I think so, it ran for like a whole year, so it was like super interesting to have like a new Superman for that, you know, whole year. Definitely learned the new villains. Like, I didn't know who Bendis was. I didn't know like what villain. I actually thought he was a reference to the writer Bendis. Like,
I did too.
I literally had no idea who he was. So it's always neat learning about, you know, new villains. I mean, I was hoping we would see like John like tackle like a new Rogues Gallery. That's like what I hope for like every like new superheroes things, because the superhero is only like partly as good as like their villain section. John's just has so much potential to it. Most of the time, I mean, it was mostly him against Bendis. It felt like a very like almost like like the movie Superman Returns. It was just mainly just focusing on him like doing like down to earth stuff rather.
Yeah.
But still like, you know, with like almost like Christopher Reeve level like powers and like grace pretty much, which is always like nice to see.
Yeah, I quite liked seeing that as well. What about you, Dave?
I enjoyed it a lot. I really enjoyed that they included the supporting cast as much as they did, because, you know, on the other side of action, you know, there was a whole different supporting cast for Superman there, because he wasn't on Earth anymore. So we got great Lois moments. You know, the annual that came out of that series with Lex Luthor and them playing chess and John just kind of going, "This is stupid." You know, like, this might be the game that you and my father played, but come on. Like, just kind of those types of themes, and him having to deal with the social media of things, you know, making it kind of related to the day, and the mistakes being said, the narrative being told about him, and him just kind of having to roll with that, and you know, not let it get to him. You know, it really felt like it could have easily been written in a way that would have just been Superman, right? But they really tried, or Tom Taylor's who wrote it, he really tried to make it, this is both Clark and Lois's kid. So that pursuit of the story, of the truth of what is really happening and how to fix this, that also drove him through this entire series. But then that never give up, you know, always put yourself out there, you know, that how him and Jay really connect, is that issue where, you know, he exhausts himself after an Earth calamity, and, you know, he's taking all these people to the hospital and picking up ships and taking them to ports, and he just falls over, like he's just done. And, you know, that's a very Superman thing. Like, you just go until you can't give. So I thought it was really, really, really well done. I know there's a lot of people that have a lot to say about it, but it was a good showcase of where who he is and how he's not his father, but is worthy of his father's symbol. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. And there were some really wholesome moments in it, especially when now I can't remember if this is in Son of Kal-El or in one of the tie-ins, but it links in with the whole story of John's sexuality, and the whole part where Clark acknowledges it and his partner for the first time. That was done so well. Like, we had all the flashbacks, wisdom. Say again?
No, that was a mainline one. I don't think that was like a spin-off.
Yeah, I thought so.
That was it was in the couple last issues during the Son of Return of Kal-El arc.
That's it. Yeah. And we had the flashbacks of the wisdom that Pa Kent gave to Clark, and it was just great to see how he used that advice to help his own situation and help his own son. That was just nice to see. And yeah, I know a lot of people don't like the fact that John's been aged up but it's happened. It's not going away. So just make the most of it with the stories that we can have. I know there was a lot of stories that could have been told from when he was younger to now, but if you read Action Comics 1051 and some of the follow-up stories that are in there, particularly the second one, then I think you might get the fix that you're looking for. Anything else to say on Son of Kal-El? So we'll just bring this comment up from Tavia. So personally, I would rather have Connor Kent be the legacy of to Superman and pick up where Clark Kent left off more than John Kent, but that's his opinion. So I don't know. I think it would have been interesting to have Connor Kent be the legacy, but then where John is Clark and Lois, Connor is Clark and Lex. So that could have been quite interesting, actually, to get some of those stories where he taps into that Lex Luthor side a little bit more. That could have been interesting, actually.
Well, and again, Connor has been, especially since New 52, Connor has kind of been thrown aside. And even in New 52, he wasn't really the same Connor that he was post or pre-Flashpoint. So, to have to kind of reintroduce him, reinvent him in a way, and then Bendis tried with the Young Justice series that he did. When he was also writing Action and Legion and all that stuff too. It was like it's the same guy. He was on Gem World when all this thing went crazy, and so that's why he's been gone. But I think there's a lot of audiences out there that just, yes, they know who Connor Kent is, but they haven't read enough of him to really know. And to have him then take the mantle of Superman, I think that would have felt kind of awkward too. So, where he's heading, he's now with the Superman family in Action Comics. Kenny Porter is going to be writing about his solo adventures here in a few months. I think we'll get to there. I think we'll get to a point where Connor will feel more like, I don't know, a brother, uncle. I don't know how to John, and I could see those two really having some fun interactions and stories later on too. So I think we'll get there.
Or they can have almost like a Jordan and John relationship, like in Clark and in the Superman and Lois show. Because there's almost like one of them has powers, one of them doesn't. That's like one of them is Lois's kid, the other sort of Lex's kid. It's like there's a difference. I mean, maybe that's what they were trying to get to with that show. Like, hey, because technically in the comics, Superman does kind of have two sons, like not set in stone, but technically almost. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just reading some of the comments.
Yeah, you look like you were reading something.
Guys, you're making the live stream. That much.
Yeah.
So, but
we haven't even got onto the third slide of what we need to talk about yet, because we're going through these comments, which I love, by the way. Keep them coming. So Andrew doesn't want to speculate about what could be with Khan, but it was disappointing not to see him in comics over 2021 until June 2022. So yeah, I think
and the Suicide Squad thing wasn't really him. It was Match. So it was his Bizarro version of him too. So yeah, that's just, I'm glad he's back. I'm glad they've decided to bring him into the fold. But
yeah,
that was series too.
Go on.
I was just saying that Suicide Squad series was the whole purpose of that was to build up between a battle between the Suicide Squad and Earth 3, the crime syndicate. Yeah, I read that. It was like Battle for Earth. It was fun. That was neat.
We'll go on to talk about the new Connor Kent series in a few slides time, because we're going to be doing a bit of a roundup of the new titles that are coming out for Superman and the Superman family. But yeah, Superman Son of Kal-El was great. I loved it. There were some great moments, like we said, but I think it's time to go to some of the, I'm not going to say more important issues, but the issues that have had more of an effect on what's going to happen for the Dawn of DC, particularly Action Comics 1050 and 1051. So I was going to issue a spoiler alert, but I guess we've just pretty much spoiled the whole contents of all those series anyway. So spoiler alert now. So Action Comics. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah. So Action Comics 1050, we'll break it up because quite a lot happens in both of the two issues. So the first one is written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, Tom Taylor, and Joshua Williamson. There's art by Mike Perkins, Clayton Henry, Nick Sagita, and colours by Frank Martin, letters by Dave Sharp. There's a huge creative team behind this, and this is a really sort of great introduction issue for the Kickstarter of the Dawn of DC. It really it lets you know roughly what these series are going to be about and who it's going to focus around. And yeah, like I said before, I'm really excited for this. So in this one in particular, Lex once again makes his own Superman suit to take Clark down, which again, just like all of the others that he's made in the past, doesn't quite make it. And it didn't quite go how he intended. So this was a really great moment. I don't think I'm doing this in order because that's sort of halfway through the issue. But that was a great moment. I loved the argument between the two because they were kind of fighting over why they should be. I don't know. They were just the what's the word? The language that they were using against each other. I thought that was great. And the moment Superman kind of got kicked down a little bit, and then he, as always, does a little speech and takes down the bad guy in this sense. And that moment kind of brought in the new power for Superman. And is this the first time that we hear of the new power? Because I know on Warworld he is kind of supercharged, but they never actually went into detail on what is supercharged within him.
I think it is the first time I mean, if you read between the lines of the Return of Kal-El arc, you know, he's no longer looking like he did in Superman and the Authority, or how he looked when he first showed up at Warworld, you know, where his powers were waning.
Yeah.
And so to have him kind of come back and look like the Superman that, you know, the classic Superman we all know and love, and, you know, not really explain it, like what happened. I think this was a way of giving that exposition that was already been in play. Like, I got recharged. I got supercharged. I'm a lot faster and stronger and all of that than I ever have been before. So, and now this kind of explains, oh, well, that's why he looks the way he's always looked. It wasn't a change of art. It was meaningful, which Philip Kennedy Johnson has always been an advocate for, where the art changes make sense. And so here's the sense to it.
Mm-hmm.
What I loved is the way he said concepts mean nothing to me anymore. So it was like weight, distance, time. That was a great line. But yeah, I just thought I'd missed something because I know that he kind of got supercharged at Warworld, but we never actually really explored what was supercharged and what that actually means for him as a character. Because obviously, as we know, John Kent is going through all these changes as well. He also has new power. So I thought I was just getting things messed up and disconnected between the two. Good timing. So Jason W. George says, I liked 1050. The new power is cool, but we've been down this road before. Introduce a new power, and within a year or two, it's like it never happened. Like when he could explode and destroy everything around him a few years ago. I don't think that's changed at all. That's just one of those things that happens over and over again. So even I'm reading through 1959 comics at the moment, and there's single issues where he develops a new power all of a sudden because he's been contaminated with kryptonite or contaminated with some other space rock, and he's suddenly got a new power, and that's just obviously forgotten about because back then there was no continuity. Each issue is its standalone story, which was it's fun to read because you get so many different concepts, but it's hard to keep up with. But yeah, it is obviously going to get. It's going to die down after it's going to be like it never happened after a few years, or well, who knows how long it's going to be. But I like the idea of it, and I like in the way that it was introduced in this issue, when Lex Luthor really thinks again that he's going to get the upper hand over Superman after all this time. This one attempt is going to do it. I really like the way that he punched that back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything always comes, you know, that's new is old again type of thing, and that's always these ebbs and flows of stories of these long lasted characters. I mean, you have to do something new, and eventually a new writer comes along. Hopefully, not for a while, because Philip is amazing. But you know, and then they'll redo something. I mean, it just or reevaluate something. I mean, how often do we see him use the super breath, and that's one of his standard powers, so who knows, it's not necessarily that it's gone away, it's just not used. So
yeah. And you kind of have to reinvent the wheel a little bit, because there's always these arguments that Superman's the strongest, and there are new villains and other characters that have come along since then with similar power sets, potentially stronger. You've got Doomsday, Darkseid, people that are real threats to Superman, and he has to I can't even think of the word, evolve. He has to evolve to stay with the times, I think. And obviously the most important thing of this issue is the whole secret identity reinstatement. So I thought the way that this was handled was perfect. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how they were going to do it. And I was really skeptical because it's only just been let out to the world that he's Clark Kent. And I thought, I didn't think it was time to reset just yet, but obviously it's going to make for more great storytelling. Yeah. But just the way they did it was great. I thought it was pretty brutal. So the world has forgotten that Clark is Superman, and we learned the news of that with Perry White, and that just ended catastrophically. And here we kind of know now how important it is, how important it was for Superman, for his peers to be able to, how it was for Clark, for his peers to know that he was Superman and to be able to live in full truth with everyone knowing what's going on. Everyone knows who he is without having to hide everything. And yeah, you just kind of forgot how important that is to him. And so basically what's happened is Lex Luthor has made, I don't know exactly what he's made, but he's done something with Manchester Black whereby he uses part of his powers to tap into the world to make them forget that Superman's
like a Professor X machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now he can tell them, but if he does, it triggers something in them that could potentially kill them. So I think in this issue, Perry White has quite fatal stroke. Well, not fatal, a quite serious stroke. And that could happen to whoever he tells. So this is kind of a new opportunity for Superman to relive, or Clark to relive his secret identity and live those separate lives, which, there was no holding back in this issue, because I think he went straight into it and went straight to separate characters. And I love the little pep talk from Batman to say, this could be a good thing. Mm-hmm. What did you guys think?
I wish they wouldn't have blanket let me rewind that. Had included so many that kept the knowledge. Like, I understand Martha and Jonathan, the family, that kind of stuff, Batman, but I think it would have been even more interesting if the rest of the hero community didn't retain that information too. But Batman explains what, because of Martian Manhunter and the psychic blocks that we have up with Justice League, we still remember who you are. But that could have played out kind of fun too. Like, I can't tell my best friends because it could hurt them, So, but still, I thought it was nice, a way to bring it back and put some consequences to who he reveals himself to, or who ends up finding out, or puts kind of it on him, like, people find out will get hurt, and so now they can't find out. Yeah. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah. And going back to the whole Justice League, not remembering. Yeah, I agree with on that one. It would have been interesting to see less people remember. So, because really, the only people that Superman or Clark really needs to tell, who doesn't know, is going to be Jimmy Olsen, right? So Perry White, obviously, we know that, and then it's going to be Jimmy Olsen. I'm assuming. I don't think we saw him in that issue.
No, I don't. We haven't seen Jimmy in quite some time. So yeah.
Because he's not really that close to anybody else for them to know. So definitely. Hello to Abdul, DC Fanverse. Hello. Let's go through some of the comments. So Andrew, I liked 1050 as well, though I never saw the full effect of the identity reveal as a more avid reader of Supergirl and Superboys. That's fair enough. And Phillyman prefers that he's Superman 100% of all the time. I did enjoy him being the same. It's like they're two different characters, really. I enjoyed him being Superman all the time, but like when we spoke to Philip Kennedy Johnson, he was explaining that, you know, the t-shirt, the shirt rips and all that stuff, you miss it. You miss the playing around with Lois Lane and all these other things. There's so many great stories that you can tell with this, and yeah, there was a lot of opportunities that needed to be done. Yeah, so I think Jason W. George talks about Manchester Black and how he hopes it isn't the last of him, and I think bad news, Jason. I'm pretty sure he.
Hopefully, Lex is lying. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose we haven't seen the full consequence of that Manchester Black issue, but it doesn't sound good for him. But I did really like Superman's reaction to that, because obviously Manchester Black is one of those few that really helped him in a time where the Justice League wouldn't help. He was struggling to get help to help Warworld, and Manchester Black was, I think, one of the first one that actually agreed to help him.
Yeah.
So his reaction to that was quite.
And his part was amazing. Like, I just loved the lines that he gave. He's like, you know what he thinks about in his deep in his dark, not you. It's not you, man.
Yeah, that was really good.
I love Manchester Black, so good.
Yeah, I'm on the fence with Manchester Black. Sometimes he's done really well, and I think we've talked about this before. And sometimes, me being a Brit, sometimes it's very over the top. But I think this version of Manchester Black was perfect, because that his humor and sort of one-liners were just brilliant. So we'll. Oh, actually, before we move on to Action 1051, the most important part of the issue, or one of the most important parts of the issue, was the very end. So that story sort of led to what's going to go on in Action Comics, but the sort of teaser at the very end is a hint of what's to come in Adventures of Superman John Kent series. So we jump to another Earth and we see Val-Zod standing over another dead Kal-El. And we learn here that somebody is jumping across the multiverse, murdering Supermen or Supermans or Kals. I don't know how you want to say it best. And yeah, Superman, Kal. And yeah, Val-Zod needs the help of John Kent to stop this. And there's a big old thing at the end saying to be continued in the Adventures of John Kent. And I'm just so glad to have Val-Zod back. His suit just looked, as soon as I saw it, I had to stop on the page for a few seconds, just be like, yes.
Yeah.
And this, we don't know much about this storyline as of yet, but this just sounds amazing.
Yeah, the imagery that they're giving, if anyone remembers the sequel to Kingdom Come called The Kingdom, it seems very similar. So obviously it's not, because that was through time. It was someone killing Superman before he could. Like, it was like, you shouldn't be able to exist. That's a whole different thing. But the imagery here was very much like another one's dead. You know, we need help. We need whoever. And so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how New Earth 2, New 52's Earth 2 fits into, you know, this new Infinite Earths. And then to me, that also brings into question, is Power Girl from this Earth, or is she from like the Justice Society time Power Girl? So no, I'm really excited to see this this throwdown that John gets to go on with different versions of his father, essentially.
Yeah. Well, it very much leads on to what we do know about the series. So first of all, we don't know how many Supermen have been killed before this one that we've seen. And we also know that in the series, John Kent is going to come face to face with Ultraman. And I think this is obviously going to tie into that. So does he need Ultraman's help? Is he fighting against him? Is it Ultraman coming through and killing? You know, we don't know. There's a lot of there's a lot of guessing we could try and do, or, you know, but I think Ultraman is obviously going to play a huge part in this. But I think he may be not as bad as we think in this. I think he's going to be one of the people that helps the situation, not by choice, but for whatever the stakes are.
That would be interesting.
I think that
to have John face his abuser and tormentor and have to be an ally, that would be something.
Yeah.
And Tom Taylor keeps teasing that there's this big secret, and like, there's so many secrets that have come out. What else is there going to be? And the way that he's sort of selling this secret is it's going to be huge. And I've just been trying to rack my brains trying to think of what could it be.
I just hope that it doesn't turn out that he's actually Ultraman's son that took John's place. That's the only one I can think of that I'm like, oh, please don't have that be what's
That'd
going
be
on.
scary.
But
That'd be
that would
very
be huge.
scary.
That, yeah. Oh, that's yeah.
Yeesh.
Potentially.
I want to be wrong.
Yeah,
I want to be.
But that would just undo everything that they've done for John Kent. I think. I don't think. I feel like that would have been a waste of time and all these series trying to build up John Kent. Be like, that it's not actually him. So we'll move on to Action Comics 1051, which is the first of the new formats. So there's 3 stories in each of the Action Comics issues going forward. So first of all, this issue and the previous one, my bank balance is not happy. There are so many covers, and they're all amazing covers. It's just been insane. I think I bought Action Comics 9 times. Action Comics 1051. I've got 9 issues of the same comic, all different covers, because they're all amazing, and I just couldn't say no. And it's just, damn you, DC Comics.
Even when Action Comics 1000 came out, I only got like 6. I got 6 of them because I think there were 6. There was not that many.
Well, Action Comics 1000, isn't it? Like there's like 30 something covers, and
no, I only knew 6. Are you serious? That's amazing.
Yeah, there's loads. Because I've managed to get them all, and it took me a long time and a lot of money. And yeah, I'd be like, oh, I've got this one, thinking I've got the whole set, and then they'll announce another variant.
Some of those are like comic retailer exclusives.
Yeah, there are some really nice ones of that as well. But yeah, going back to Action Comics, there are 3 stories, like we said. The first is by PKJ, art by Rafa Sandoval, and colors by Matt Herms. This issue it was just so good to see all of the Superman family together like this. This was definitely the calm before the storm. They're getting some downtime. They get some new suits. They build some relationships. And it was just really sweet and nice to see. My favorite part of this whole downtime family moment was the fact that Lois kept the Warworld suit. And I think John goes to the closet to get a board game or something like that, and she literally runs straight in front. And he's like, "Why have you still got this?" And she's like, "Mind your business." I thought that was hilarious. It made me laugh. And then in this issue, John and Natasha Irons are working with technology from Warworld, and people aren't happy with it, to the point where they decide to blow up the tallest tower that they've built for their offices. And I think there's a new series, which we'll talk about in a second, but I think this is going to lead to that series, which is called Steelworks. What did you guys think about that part?
Oh, the Steelworks part?
Oh, the John and Natasha Irons sort of build up of having this massive company together. And
I'm just like, I haven't like read a whole lot. I'm just interested to see where it goes at this point. That's the only thing, because I do like the character of Natasha Irons. Superman and Lois definitely hooked me on her, even though it's not like a comics accurate take on her. It's still like neat to have like that presence, like the Superman family.
Yeah.
And again, like Steel is like a cool hero. It's been around since like the reign of the Superman days, pretty much.
And I think this actually ties into that, because it's coming up, I think, well, it's obviously this year because we've got the Death of Superman 30th anniversary special. It's also Steel's 30th anniversary. So I think I think Steelworks is part of a celebration of that. And this is obviously leading towards it. So that's pretty cool. We also see Metallo in his very, very new body, because at the beginning of the Action Comics sort of story arc, he's a sort of a robot that is about to fall apart, fall to pieces. And Lex Luthor steps in, gives him a huge upgrade, gives him a body. And yeah, though he has no choice, because Lex Luthor is blackmailing him because he has his sister. I think he's framed her for murder or something like that. He doesn't really have a choice, but he does seem very comfortable in this villain role, considering he was just about to change his ways. And he's got some new powers too. So he has, well, we've only seen sort of a few panels with it, but it looks like he has some sort of metal sword-like abilities that form with his mind, kind of thing. And there was one of the, I think it was Lazarus Planet Assault on Krypton. There is an issue or a story where Mercy Graves gets
the same
struck
powers.
by the lightning, she gets the same powers. So I feel like that's obviously they're not just gonna do that for one story. I feel like she's gonna come into the story very soon, and they're gonna be very similar and sort of a tag team duo on Superman and John. But what were your thoughts on the new powers of Metallo?
I felt like it was a nice callback to the animated series because he talks about not feeling right in his own skin, and that was something that series kind of explored, where he could, he didn't, even though he looked like he should, it didn't feel right to him.
The Malcolm McDowell, yeah. Perfect.
And so I thought that was a good little nod. And then, being able to shoot the kryptonite out of his eyes and just, I don't know, he just feels like he's been leveled up a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially since he was able to take out Connor. I mean, Connor, his tactile telekinesis should be able to just be like, and Metallo's done. And this was just like, and I got him by the scruff of the neck. So what are you going to do? It was a nice, like, oh, here we are. Here we go. Round one, fight.
Yeah, it's definitely upped the stakes, and like I said, he's definitely leveled up a little bit, and he's definitely a lot more dangerous to Superman than he was previously. And Philip Kennedy Johnson said that he missed the whole Clark shirt rip thing, and he wasted absolutely no time in doing that, because I think he does that several times in this issue as well. So, and after Philip was kind of saying to us, every time he sees it, he hears the music in his ears. I did the same.
There you go. Yep.
And Andrew confirms that John Henry and Connor are both 30 in June. So that's potentially why they're getting their own series. They're being thrown back into the mainstream. I think this is going to make like a new era of fans for these characters, because obviously you've got all the fans that know and love these characters from the 90s. Like I said, Superboy, Connor Kent changed quite a lot in New 52, and we're bringing back the originals now.
He changed a lot in the normal continuity too. Like one we saw him with the jacket, then the next one we saw him with the black T-shirt. Yeah. He was like, I'm reading that Titans series right now on the comic app. I'm like going through it, the Jeff Johns one, the original one.
Yeah, I mean, Johns did a great job on that. Just kind of, bring in that whole what's it mean to be Lex's clone as well. So it brought a different layer to Connor, because before that he was just kind of, jokey, 90s, who cares type of.
Exactly, yeah.
Different depth to him.
Speaking of Titans, actually, it's a piece of news that we didn't talk about. It's been cancelled.
I know. That was a shame.
Yeah, in the UK, we're behind, so we haven't got. Is it Series 4 they're on now? They've just changed it. But we haven't got that yet. So I've only seen up to Series 3. But I love
got the second part of it yet.
No.
Yeah.
You only got
We've
first half.
just got the second part of the third series on Netflix. But yeah, I love that series. It's one of the best DC TV shows that we've had. We get to see live action Krypto. That was a big tick for me. And Superboy was great in it, but I don't think he had his time to shine. Like a lot of the stories, they were all Nightwing based. Obviously, he's the main character. But yeah, and he had the Red Hood storyline. I don't know I can't speak for the fourth series, but it just seemed like there was a lot of wasted potential with that version of Superboy.
It's kind of. I don't know. Part of me is kind of wondering why they even put him in it. Because they do kind of overshadow him or take him out real easy in a lot of different places. It's kind of like, okay, but still, it was good. He did a good job playing that character, so it's kind of sad.
Yeah. Philly Man, Doom Patrol as well. That got cancelled. I admittedly haven't seen. I watched the first 4 episodes, and I'm one of those people that I keep starting series and I don't finish them, and this is one of them. I still haven't finished Smallville. I just keep starting new ones. Not that I'm not enjoying it. I did enjoy Doom Patrol, but I haven't seen it, so I can't speak to that. But I know a lot of people.
Both of these. Sorry, go ahead.
Go on.
I was just saying. I was just remember when both of them came out on the DC app before it became, the comic thing. And I think, I was still in school, so I would just like watch them after class, like every like Friday or Wednesday they came out. It was neat. It was like it really felt like original productions too.
Yeah.
They did, and they got big, and then I guess, yeah.
But I feel like
it goes along. Oh, sorry.
Like I was gonna say that I feel like they're both big though at this point, and it seems like a weird time. If the viewers had dwindled off, but every time I log on, I always see stuff about Doom Patrol. I always see stuff about Titans. So there's still a lot of people talking about it. So I just think it's a weird time to cancel them.
Well, and it kind of comes on the heels of the CW wanting to change up their programming and doing away with all the superhero stuff, which makes me nervous about Superman and Lois. But I kind of wonder if it's just not a whole production thing that's happening with Warner Brothers. I mean, James Gunn was pretty quick to come out and go, I had no part of this. This was a decision that was made. I was on board. Like, don't come at me.
This is another thing. Like, he is literally getting everything. He's been abused because of decisions that he hasn't made. I think one of the first things I saw when I saw this news, like, he was getting attacked for canceling Titans and Doom Patrol. I was like, look, this is not me. So I think in that sense. Sorry, I digress. We'll go back to Action Comics now. So the second story was by Dan Jurgens and art by Lee Weeks with colors by Elizabeth Breitweiser. Sorry if I pronounced the name incorrectly, but I loved this. I love the story. I didn't expect to get a follow-on from... So this is the follow-on from the story in the Death of Superman 30th Anniversary Special, where we saw John Kent sort of really learn about what happened to his dad. Because I think... Well, from what I gather, he was told about the situation, but he wasn't told that his dad was actually killed and came back to life. So it was great to see that sort of emotional journey from his part. He learned that news from somebody coming into his school, sort of teach him about the day, which, isn't the best way to learn about that kind of stuff. And you had this whole fight between, so there was the Doomsday Bone, which sort of evolves, and I can't remember the name of the person. He managed to get a hold of it, and he turns into Doombreaker, which is like an even more evolved version of Doomsday. So you think, to be honest with that, I thought the fight was going to be a lot harder than it was, with him being extra evolved. Doomsday killed Superman. I thought this was going to be a bigger threat than what he was.
They needed more pages. They really did.
Yeah, definitely more pages. But it was a great story, and there was a great moment where John sort of stood in front of Doombreaker and was just like, stop hitting my dad. And for him to do that, a little boy, probably 10 years old, that was just a great moment. And this is sort of a follow-on from that, where Superman and Lois take John away from Metropolis to get some downtime. Now, this is kind of like a sequel to the Superman and Lois series that Dan Jurgens did, right? Because there's reference to they get the dog back that they had at the time. And we saw Black Suit Superman again, and this was another little part that made me laugh, because Lois kept yet another one of his suits, and I'm just intrigued to see how many suits she made him keep. Because that sounds like all of them. But in that story, the main sort of talking point is the fact that John gets his hands on the Doomsday Bone, because everyone's looking for it, they can't find it, and the reason they can't find it is because John's took it thinking it's not safe with anybody apart from me. Now, obviously, we've seen what it did to the worker that turned into Doomsbreaker. What's it going to do to John? What are your thoughts?
I was just thinking. I'll get back to that in a moment. But I was just thinking about like the whole like John and Doomsday thing. Didn't at the beginning of Rebirth, didn't we have like a story where like Doomsday came back and like it was Superman and Wonder Woman against him? It was like 3 books. It was a big fight, and I remember that. Didn't John stand up to hit Doomsday there too, or not?
You're taxing my memory on that one. I don't remember him. I remember them watching it on television because that's why Clark got involved. But I don't remember if John was actually involved in the confrontation. Whew, that's been several years ago.
I don't know. With the Doomsday Bone, I don't know. Maybe we'll get a Doomsboy story arc. Remember Doomsboy? It's that it's that canonical story where after Superman's death, they clone Doomsday instead of him.
Yeah.
And the clone is like a Doomsday Superboy guy who's like really reckless and like kind of a jerk. Just like tries to be a superhero, but he doesn't. And his brother is Connor Kent, who doesn't have any powers. And Connor Kent's like, you shouldn't be doing this. He's like, I'm the new superhero. I can do whatever I want. It's all good. Okay. I'm Doomsboy. And he has the jacket he has.
Yeah.
It's
it was an Elseworlds, wasn't it?
I'm gonna have to Google this because I've never heard of this character.
I think it was. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just don't really know what to.
To to go back to that time and tell the story. To me, I think it's. I don't want to say this in a negative way, but it's kind of throwing a bone to the people that want to see a young John story. It may be more of an olive branch. Maybe that's what it should be. It's like here, we'll give you some young John stories. Here you go. And it was great. It was great to see Dan Jurgens pick that up and go with it. So I'm more intrigued of where it's heading, because it seemed to start out that it was going to be about the disappearance of Doombringer and the disappearance of the Shard, and we see John burying it or putting it in a case or whatever. Yeah. And now we have a new alien visitor. So it's like, what? Yes, I forgot about that. Where does that go? So it'll be fun to see this play out.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the precursor to why John's powers is fluctuating now, not because it was doing it before the Lazarus reign. Because it happened in Son of Kal-El. It started there. So maybe this is kind of a retro explanation of, and that's why he was exposed to this thing.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point, because it just seems very random to tap back into that story in that particular time. And this, do we know who the character is, the new alien character in the spaceship? Because if obviously this is in the past, so I'm assuming that this character is going to turn out to be someone that we know.
Maybe. I mean, they don't really. There's so many people it could be.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could be someone completely new.
Time will tell, I guess. Time will tell. And then just to move on to the third story, which is by Leah Williams with art by Marguerite Sauvage. And this, I don't know a lot about Power Girl, but I'm glad. I know the basics. I know that she's been gone a long time. I'm glad that she's back in the comics. So in the Lazarus Planet, I think it was Assault on Krypton, she develops these powers, which is affected by that the storm. And she has some sort of psychic abilities, and there's a character called Omen who sort of has a connection with her, and they sort of not necessarily train together, but they're in discussions with each other to figure out what was going on and how best they can use those powers. And in this one, they kind of offer their services to heroes who need help. And the first person that she ends up helping is Beast Boy after what happened to him in Dark Crisis. So again, like I said, I haven't read Dark Crisis, but he dies, right? Does he die?
Oh, no.
Not really, Deathstroke shoots him in the head, but his like lizard, like I assume like Beast Boy has like, having all the powers of the animal kingdom, he can like re-heal. He's got a healing factor of some sort, like a lizard or a starfish. But it took a lot out of him to heal, and he remembers it. Like he remembers it happening.
Well, that's why Wade even says, Deathstroke even says something when he's getting ready to shoot him in the face. It's like, is that even really where your organs are? And just blows him, just pow, right in the face.
Yeah.
So now he's wearing an eye patch, which is interesting because when he changes forms, he has both eyes. So
yeah.
It's like, why are you wearing an eye patch?
In this one, he's stuck in a particular animal, which is a cow or a calf, I think. And he just looks very sad. So she goes into his mind to try and find exactly what it is, or try and heal exactly what it is that's making this happen. I just thought it was a really cool concept of her going into his mind and fighting him and his demons in the forms of all these different beasts. I can't remember what animals there are. There are so many different sort of takes that animals that he turns into, monsters, beasts. I just thought it was really cool. The art was really different to the rest of the issue, which was great. And yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes, because obviously it's going to have a huge effect, and where all the other characters and short stories are sort of leading to their own series. There isn't actually a Power Girl series announced, is there, as far as I'm aware?
No, and this is a 3-parter, so I don't know. Maybe it's a precursor to something that because she is a big player in the Justice Society. So maybe, but
and that's also the Justice Society series that's just started, actually. So maybe she's one of the main characters in that.
I've been seeing a lot of Power Girl content with her as like a really good supporting character, like Mark Russell's like Heroes for Hire or whoever it was.
It was 1-Star Squadron.
1-Star Squadron. Yeah, she has a very like good supporting role in that. She's just like trying again. It's also like she is trying to help other heroes. I guess that's just in her character. That's what she is.
Yeah.
We've got a request, Sam's. Jason George wants to see a close up of your shirt.
Oh yeah, this is the this is the DJ Cascade like collab with Superman. I think.
Oh yes.
Yeah, this is the shirt that they had. It's like musical themed. I really like it. No, but the musician's name is Cascade with K's. Never read any of his stuff. But I think you ordered stuff from it too, Tasman. I think they had like a comic book. They had
I got the comic. Don't ask me where it is, but I have it somewhere. But that had a cool cover, and it was actually the issue. It's Superman issue 1 with the Brian Bendis series.
Yeah, it was that one. It was the issue 1 of that. Yeah, it's cool when DC does like collaboration with like artists. I think they recently did one with Harley Quinn and another artist.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, maybe we'll see what the next one they do is.
Something I bought recently, just again off topic. I bought the Swarovski Superman collaboration, or Swarovski and DC Comics, and there's like pieces that are like £500, which I didn't get, and then there was a little magnet which was £25, and I got it in the sale, thinking, oh yeah, that's a great size, thinking it was going to be like this, and it arrived, and it's teeny tiny. I can see why it's on sale, because probably not a lot of people are happy with the size of it. Hello to Connor. Speaking of. All right, so we'll leave the Action Comics there, and we'll start talking about some of the new Superman family titles and series that we've got to look forward to. So obviously Action Comics with the new format of the 3 stories, it's going to follow the first one with that Philip Kennedy Johnson is writing is going to follow Metallo and Lex Luthor as the main villains, it seems. The second story will follow the aftermath of Doombreaker as Superman and Lois take John away from Metropolis, and then we'll obviously get to see what happens with this Doomsday bone and what consequences it has, and obviously the new alien character that we got introduced to at the very end of the story. And then the third will follow Power Girl on her quest to master her new psychic powers with the help of Omen. Be honest, guys, which of the 3 stories within that are you most looking forward to?
I'm a sucker for Power Girl, so I'm actually really curious to see where she's going. And this is a interesting take on her, because the story focuses on a lot of her computer technology skills that a lot of people kind of forget she has. And most generally, because she is not the strategy type minded person of Clark or even Kara, she's usually used as more of a brute force. And to have her kind of come back in being kind of still using that skill set, but in this different kind of empathic manner, I think is really exciting for her. So yeah, I mean, obviously action or the PKJ stuff. Metallo is one of my favorite villains. So that's going to be amazing, but I'm really interested with where Power Girl's going.
Cool. And I'm guessing your answer is going to be
the PKJ one and the Doombreaker one, honestly. I always love like Doomsday theme story. Like New 52 Superman Doomed was like, oh my god, that was like one of my favorite Superman stories ever told. Like when Doomsday just comes back and he's like different, like he's like more powerful, it's wild. It's so much fun. So much fun to read.
Yeah, I think for me, sorry, Sam.
No, I was gonna say I'm sure we'll get like more pages of like it if like the main one didn't feel like it had enough.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, it's the Metallo story. I think that's it's dark, it's gritty. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes and seeing how all the super twins in particular, that they kind of got introduced in this issue as well, and they've got their new suits now. So I'm just intrigued to see how they're going to interact with these characters and these villains as well. That'll be pretty cool to see. Connor, yes, you've missed quite a lot. So we're an hour and 20 minutes in, but it's been a while for him, and you always miss us when you go live. So thank you for joining, and I'm glad you could make it. And we'll try and announce when we're doing the recordings a little bit earlier in advance so we can get you guys on board, because, yeah, we love getting you involved. Jason is of the thought that Cyborg Superman has watered down Metallo as a threat. But I think they've kind of leveled the playing field here because they've given him a new body. He's got new powers. Yeah, I think the stakes are pretty high with this Metallo. And
I don't disagree with that sentiment, though. I think Metallo's been kind of a joke. Not really a joke, but an underused undervalued villain for quite some time, and always and kind of a throwaway. And so to bring him up to this kind of like, oh yeah, so this is happening. I wouldn't disagree that he has been kind of watered down, and now he's not.
Yeah,
so,
and
the angle that to bring him back, the angle to bring him back in such a way where he was like, I was willing just to sit my time out, like I was done, but yeah, I have to. This is how it is. The motivations behind that is also interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's going to make him more dangerous because he's not just doing it for straight up revenge. He's doing it to save his sister. So, okay, we also have Adventures of Superman John Kent, which obviously will follow John as he comes face to face with Ultraman after what he did to him back in, I think it was the Bendis run, wasn't it, with the whole volcano torture stuff that he went through, which was really, really harrowing to read. Obviously, we also got that throwback to Val Zod coming and finding another dead Kal-El. So we're going to find out how that story intertwines with Ultraman and how that affects John. Obviously, it's to do with his dad, and it seems pretty damn serious. So I think it's going to be. I think that's going to be possibly one of the best of the series that have been announced. To be honest, I think that's going to be the most. Tom Taylor's already teased as a huge secret, and I think this is going to be the most shocking of the bunch. We also have Superman issue 1, which is a new era of Superman, and it looks like it's going to bring in new and old villains and supporting characters. So I think in the cover alone, we can see Livewire, Parasite, Bizarro. There's tons of characters in there, sort of thrown in, hidden, some of them. It took me so long to find Bizarro until somebody found it on Twitter and was like, oh, Bizarro's in this. And I was like, wait a minute. And I had to go through for about 10 minutes trying to figure out where he was. So the art is by Jamal Campbell, and it's written by Joshua Williamson. And Williamson's a great writer. Anyway, he did the Batman Superman World's Finest, the first run, not this new one where he was going through.
Yes, where they were doing the. Was it World's Finest? I think it was the one before that. No, because that was.
I think it was World's Finest.
From the beginning of World's Finest, but then it was.
It was on with the movie thing, wasn't it? Where the way that it was written was all.
Oh, that was the series before World's Finest. That was the Batman Superman series that started with like Year of the Villain.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. Yeah, and I think he started that series, but Gene Young. I can never.
Gina Wen Yang took over.
Yeah. He was doing the one with the movies.
Oh, okay.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole, it was good anyway. So I'm excited to see what's going on with this. I think this is going to be, so it's been teased that this is like a new take on Superman. I love Philip Kennedy Johnson, but his Superman is very gritty, very real. I feel it's still got all those perfect Superman traits, but that is very much the way his Superman is. But this one feels like it's a very classic, as if you were reading, the stories back in the 90s or whatever. I think this is a very classic take on Superman, which I'm really excited for. So the first issue is out on the 21st of February, which is not too long away at all. So one of you lucky guys get the honor of doing the reviews. So whoever wants to, whoever wants to take that one. And then we have Steelworks, which, like I said, is part of the 30th anniversary for Steel. The first issue comes out in June, which is the official 30th anniversary. There is no creative team announced yet, which is very annoying because I'm very eager to find out who's going to be taking that on, because that could change everything. It all depends who's going to be taking the story on in these characters. And all we know is that it follows John, Henry, and Natasha Irons, and I'm guessing it's linked to what we've kind of been introduced to in Action Comics 1051, where they've got this company, they're using all the technology from Warworld, and people aren't happy with it. So it's going to be, it's going to be interesting to see where that goes and how that affects the rest of the characters in the series as well. We also have Superboy, The Man of Tomorrow, which focuses around Connor Kent, and it's written by Kenny Porter with art by Janoy Lindsay. This, again, we don't know too much about this apart from he sets off in another world in search of self-discovery and finds a group of freedom fighters that challenge everything that it means to be Superman or to wear the Superman crest. And just that line alone I'm like, well, what are they doing? So that could be very interesting as well. And issue 1 is out on the 19th of April. So the preview pages and art we've seen of this, because this was the winner of the DC round robin. So it seems like this. See, I don't know if this Superboy necessarily links into the rest of the Dawn of DC that's been going on, because this has been planned. Obviously, they plan things ahead, but this seems like it's been in the works for a longer time than
it seems like
the others. So I wonder if they've adapted it a little bit to fit within.
I imagine they have to make it feel more what's going on, because to me this whole new, I don't even want to say new, but this whole current era of the Superman storytelling and writing, even within 1050, you had all 3 Superman writing teams working on the same book, and this just really feels like it's going back to that triangle era where everyone was collaborating together to write this one huge story. And so I have a feeling that they, even though it might not have been at the time that it was written for the round robin stuff, that they'll either incorporate it into where that one will make sense, or they will go back and make it fit. Like it'll be within. I'm pretty confident of that.
But yeah, I'm just interested to see how this actually fits in with the rest, because he's obviously going on his own mission off-world to find these freedom fighters. And I think this is going to be the turning point for the character, I think, because like I said, a lot of people just, like, we know John Kent now, we know the rest of the Superman family. This is Connor taking himself out of that equation and having his own story. I feel like this is going to be his sort of Kal-El sort of story, where we find out who this character is. He gets his own relationships. He gets his own responsibilities. We know exactly what he's about. And I think he needs that, because I think at the moment he does sort of sometimes feel like a spare part in the comics, especially when you've got all the other members of the Superman family. You've got John Kent, who is very similar to him. I know Connor came first, but John's been the focus of everything at the moment. So I think it's good for him to actually be separated a little bit. They're the only ones that have been announced, but Jason does raise a good point to say that Supergirl needs another title, and I totally agree. I think she's going to play a huge part in Action Comics, though, to be honest. She's got a new suit. I don't think that's going to be there just for show. I think Philip Kennedy Johnson teased that the whole Superman family is going to play an important part in this series. So yeah, I'm excited to see where she goes, and maybe if people are more interested in her, then she'll get her own series, because I think, again, she's another character that's sort of put on the back burner quite a lot. We kind of forget what she's gone through. She's gone through a lot more than Superman in terms of what she remembers on Krypton. She wasn't a baby. She remembers it. She has those relationships and those experiences. So she's gone through a lot, and that was really explored in Woman of Tomorrow as well. That was a brilliant series. I actually watched Legion of Superheroes as well earlier this week, and I can't talk about it, but it goes into quite a bit of detail on her relationship with Krypton and how that's affected her. So if you're interested in Supergirl, it's
definitely see that movie. I love the DC. I love the DC animated movies, from like whatever continuity they have going on to their standalone ones. It's always fun.
Yeah, I love the DC animated films as well. I think they do stuff that the live action ones just wouldn't dare to and couldn't.
No, they wouldn't.
We'll talk about Battle of the Super Sons another time, I think, but that is my favorite one. That was brilliant. So good. That deserves its own episode, I feel. So that's out on the 19th of April, so we got that to look forward to. And now we should have done this at the beginning of the month, but we're going to go through our best of 2022. We've got several categories to go through, so feel free to play along if you're listening live. So
before we go there, though, there's one more title that probably should be mentioned, is that the Christopher Priest writing Superman Lost, which is that time weirdness that's happening to him that's coming out here in a couple months too. So lots of Superman.
I can't believe I forgot about that one. So this is the one where he is lost for 20 years, comes back, and I can't remember whether it's Lois and the world have forgotten about him, or he's forgotten about
him. Yeah, something. I
forgotten
don't know.
about them.
I can't remember either, but it's Christopher Priest, so it's going to be amazing. I don't think he's done anything terrible, so it's going to be good.
Yeah, there's so much Superman content coming out at the moment. I know, obviously, we've lost Henry Cavill, but there is so much other Superman stuff that we can sort of delve into as well. So yeah, like I said, feel free to play along if you are listening. So we're going to start with favorite colorists. Anybody want to? I'm going to go Sam. Go for it. Who's your favorite colorist of the year?
With colors, I think it would just be who I saw the most of, or like is in the prettiest color. I think it would be I have Tamara Bondvillain. I hope I'm saying her name right.
Such a great name too, Bondvillain.
Yeah. Not Bond villain.
I know. There's
one letter away, but not smooth. Like Smooth Color, I see a lot. I think it was either in Action Comics or I don't think it was Dark right now. I think it was Action Comics.
No, I think she also did the colors for Son of Kal-El quite a lot.
The covers, the cover colors for it.
The cover ones,
Yeah, how about you, Dave?
I put down Laura Allred from Superman Space Age. I felt like her work on that makes that art not seem hokey or cheesy. You know, it makes it feel like that's from that era. And I thought she does a really good job on that. Of course, you know, she doesn't have any connection to the person writing it.
Nothing beats a spouse team. Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor.
Yeah, those two are great together too.
I love them.
Yeah,
so nice.
And I love that they work together. Like, I love that you're doing that with your partner as well. Because if I tried to get Andrew to get involved in the Superman stuff, it would be a no. So I appreciate that. For me, I chose Arif Prianto. So he does Dark Knights of Steel, and I think Yasmin Putra's artwork is on another level for that. But the colors just make it so realistic, and it has like a kind of fantasy glow, like, you know, the brownie tints that you get on the scripts. And I don't you call it a teabag stain, but it doesn't sound very nice. But it's got that little brown hue tint to it. I just think he's done a great job with that series. And speaking of series, what is your favorite series of the year? Like entire series.
Honestly, for me, it would be World's Finest, because what makes a good comic series to me is also like how accessible it is to like others, like who I want to talk about. Like, because I mean, Action Comics is great, but there's some storylines where it's like, oh, you need to like see this before it. World's Finest is like one where you could like just approach to anyone and just say, hey, you could read this. In fact, like my dad, who, you know, read comics like growing up, like Silver Age stuff, like he was like, what are you reading? Like recently, I showed him The World's Finest. He's like, this is great. This is almost like exactly what I grew up with a kid. Like, so he enjoys reading it. He knows like all the characters in it. It's like one you could talk with like other people about. It ties in. It's possibly an Elseworld story. The revelations are coming, and yeah, it was really nice. I mean, like I think what makes a good comic is also how well you're able to share it too.
Yeah, I think I do enjoy World's Finest as well. But I think what I like the most about it is that it goes back to the old sort of style of comics. It's totally fun. It just feels like it's there for fun. It's not got this whole meaningful route that it's going down, which I think it has started to do that a little bit now. But to begin with, it was very Silver Age, or it felt like that.
It's definitely Mark Waid playing around with his own sandbox, though, and I also appreciate that too, because this whole Demon Ninja thing is taking a hold and is reshaping all of DCU going forward. And now Boy Thunder, there's things that have come out with that goes back to his work way back when. So I think it really comes out in his writing that he's just having fun with his own stuff. And it's like, I love doing this, and you can tell that. And it's I agree. It's a good book.
Jason is asking how old your dad is, Sam.
I didn't mean like Silver. He was born in like 1969, so he's like 54 right now. It's like in his mid 50s.
He said he's 51, and most of his reading started in the 80s modern age.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. My dad. I think one of the first comics he recently found. I don't know. I think this was a 70s one. It was like the first Batman comic book he had. It was like a woman looking into a crystal ball, and it was like Batman and Catwoman being captured like by her, and that was like the first like Batman book. Right. So I think that was like around the 70s.
Nice. And what's your favorite series, Dave?
So I have to kind of, be the one of the masses here, I think, and Action Comics for me has just blown me away in ways that I can't remember being that excited to read again. So yeah, I agree with some of what Sam's saying. It's not really approachable if you haven't been reading it, but just the artwork on that, the storyline on that, I could have had it a longer time. I know PKJ has talked about it went on so long. I was like, I could have had more. Like, it was just some of the stuff with Apollo in that and Midnighter, and just everything that was happening was just so well done and intricate. And yeah, it was what I was looking forward to the most when I would pick up books. So Action gets my vote.
Yeah, for me, I really struggled to pick one. It was definitely Action Comics was one of the ones that I was fighting against, just because I think this is probably one of the best Superman stories I've ever read. It's given us a perfect modern day Superman. We've got these classic Superman stories that have, like, if you tried to take them out and put them in this world situation or the time that we're in now, they just wouldn't quite work. But this is a Superman story of the times, I think. And the other one is Dark Knights of Steel. I've just loved it. I love fantasy. I love superheroes. It's the perfect mix for me. It's been totally unpredictable, especially the last issue. And I think it's just used characters in ways that we've never seen before. It's just been brilliant. I don't think we've ever actually talked about Dark Knights of Steel on the podcast, actually. Maybe
I need to read more of it, but I know it's good.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. That's the one that I know it doesn't come out too often, but that's the one I look forward to the most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the one I read the quickest as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to individual artists. Who are your favorites?
So when judging like favorite Superman artists, it's basically like the illustrator who I associate with Superman's appearance for that year. I think like 10 years ago, 2013, I could remember mine. It was Kenneth Rocaford with all the work he was doing in the New 52, like Superman. Like, but for this year, I think it would have to be Dan Moore on World's Finest, because that's Superman, like that plain like styled Superman with the blue pupils and like more or less like not too realistic face, like photorealistic. That simple like approach it almost like the animated series is like how I saw Superman this year, pretty much.
Yeah. How about you, Dave?
So I'm going to squeak this one in because Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow finished up, I think, in February of 2022. I fell in love with Bilquis Everly's art on that book. It was just so otherworldly, and since she was going to these other worlds, it really put you into that, and I just loved it. And I started following her on Twitter. There was a Christmas present I got from my wife because I was like, "You're gonna love this." It had her artwork in it, so I had to go with her. So
following an artist is the best. You're like, I need more of this, and then you go to a page where they regularly post. It's like great.
Oh man, it's just so good.
Phenomenal.
And I picked the same as you, Dave. Her artwork is just.
I need to look at that.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So good.
Every single issue was just so detailed. Every page, every cover that she did, incredible. And I'd love to see more of her work on these characters.
Her alien designs was completely alien. Like it was just like you really felt like it was a space science fiction story.
And there were so many different atmospheres as well. Like where they went to all these different planets, and everyone had a different feel. It was like it reminded me of the way that they've done Star Wars, where there's all these creatures and races and all these different, they've all got their different looks, and they've made all this just for that individual thing. And I feel like she's done that for this.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to cover now. I'm going to start with, because I've got the pictures lined up just so you know what we're talking about. So let's start with Dave. Do you want to announce it first?
Okay, so that would be the Superman War World Apocalypse cover. that was the main cover. Yeah, that one. This, so, you know, loving the old school serials, movies and stuff like this just resonated like some Flash Gordon, the Warlord of Mars, that kind of imagery. And it just, I don't know, having that different title on there that was in a different style that we haven't seen Superman written like that before. It was just great. I just loved it. So I had to put that as it kind of goes into me liking action and that storyline and everything like that. But yeah, it was just such a singular, like, wow. So that was my pick.
Yeah. No, I haven't picked it as my favorite, but when I do think of Superman comic issues, that is one that does pop into my head straight away. So that just goes to show what impact it's had. Sam, how about yours?
Mine is like, I love fun variants. They'll like instantly sell me on any book. So the one I picked was the first issue of The World's Finest. I think this was like February last year. It's the Jerry Seinfeld one. Yeah, it's the comedian cards getting copy one. But you have Dan Moore's Superman is here, and he pretty much nails the likeness for Jerry Seinfeld. And this is also one of those variants where you just show to other people who don't. It was be like, hey, look at this. This is great. And I love famous Superman fans, all sorts of like notable famous people like Superman fans, like Jerry Seinfeld, Howard Stern, Gilbert Gottfried. So those only people like love Superman in like the most wholesome way possible. And it's nice that they just get to appear in like the comic books.
Yeah,
it's neat. It's neat. And then like second to that, I mean, are just like cool like character ones like. You don't need to show them, but there's like a couple. There was like one from a Dark Crisis where it was Red Sun Superman fighting Stephen.
Oh yes,
it was just, it doesn't happen in the story at all. Just like purely just there. People were just like, I'm just going to draw Red Sun Superman specifically fighting Steppenwolf. And there was another one. This was another World's Finest one. It was the Joker riding Doomsday, Doomsday into battle.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh my goodness, if that happened in the book.
Yeah,
so fun. Just fun variants like that. The '90s covers were great this year.
Yes, they were.
The '90s ones were fun.
The one was funny where I think it was Mario Fakillo, and he had the capes going over.
Yeah, that was the best one of the whole series. Yeah.
That was great. My favorite is the variant for Batman Superman World's Finest issue 7, which is by Joshua Middleton. I think it's just a great the way that they've done. You know, you've got the Justice statue, you've got the light, the dark. I think it's great, and it really shows the character. I love the classic suits as well. It's not often we get to see those, and I just think it's a great cover.
Yeah, that light and dark like borders are like the biggest motifs in the World's Finest. You will find them on nearly every single one. So it's just a question. It's always just a question of how unique is the artist going to make it.
Yeah. And Joshua Middleton did a great job, and his artwork anyway is just incredible. Okay, let's go to single issue. What's your favorite single issue? So don't worry about the series as a whole, just individual issue. Sam, do you want to go first?
It's not so. It would definitely be I think I still have. It's the Dark Crisis one. I forget what it's called. It's like one of the tie-ins. It was. Like Countdown or something. It was like one where the Flash like takes on the Anti-Monitor.
Oh, okay.
And
Big Bang. I think it's
Big Bang. Yes, the Big Bang. That's what it was called. Yeah, I had it confused with Speed Metal, but oh my god! Not just that. Not only is like the fight great because like you get to see the Flash at like his max power, like fighting the Anti-Monitor who just eats universes. Like that's his whole deal. And they're going, and it's like it's a fight that spans universes, and like in each one of these universes, you see like a different like DC story or like movie. And it's like, and the characters just like watching it happen. It's like, and I'm just like, this is a great. It has like hard hits in it. It has like it's everything like you want in like a superhero comic book, pretty much. Pretty fun. And lots of Superman too. Like you have Kingdom Come and Superman Beyond in one scene together. You have Christopher Reeves in there too because they show the movie one. Lots
homage to every kind of era. It sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. There's like Flash isn't the only hero, and there's like every other person's in it, like Silver Age ones.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. Actually, I might have to pick that one up or give that one a read. How about you, Dave?
So mine wasn't so much the entire comic itself, but the moment that it had in it, and that would be Superman, Son of Kal-El, number 10. where Lex has had this press conference and he's trying to write this narrative about John that isn't true to get public opinion against him. And Lois just holds up a golden rope and asks him to answer some questions by holding it. And he walks off, and everyone assumes it's the golden lasso of truth from Wonder Woman, because why wouldn't it be? She's Superman's wife. Why wouldn't she have access to it? And then when she's questioned about it, she's like, "Oh, this is just something I bought in the hardware store." And straight from the golden. Yeah. And I'm just like, that's totally a Lois move. Like, that was so good. It just struck out. It reminded me of that moment in the Donner version of Superman 2 where she shoots Clark with blanks to prove that he's Superman. And it just was just so good. And it just, I don't know, it stuck out. When I could think of anything, it was like, oh man, that moment is in that book, and it's just so fun.
Completely, yeah.
That was a good moment. That was a good Lois moment. Mine is the Death of Superman 30th Anniversary Special. I just like how, because it's such an iconic storyline, I love how they can still go back and adapt even more stories from it. So we got different takes, like we saw. So it focused obviously around the Doom Breaker situation, and then we got to see when Ma and Pa Kent saw it, and how we've built on that storyline. And I just think it was really clever how they did it. And like we were talking about earlier, where that moment where John, a 10-year-old boy or however old he is, stands in front of this huge monster who is capable of doing so much damage and just stands up to him. I think that was just a great moment. And a great issue.
It was cool. It was neat how, because it was the 30th anniversary when that story specifically came out. So it's always a neat thing to do. And we're definitely going to get more next year with the Reign of the Supermen turning 30. Yeah. Like those characters turning 30 as well.
Well, it was awesome that they got all the writing teams on that book. That was
that had a huge team, didn't it?
Yeah.
And Jason's just doesn't know the issue, but the moment for him of 2022 is when Superman comes back for the first time, and John flies supersonic to him to hug him, and it made me think of his dad and how he misses him. So, I think that moment was a great moment, and I'm pretty sure that was Kal-El Returns.
That was a good,
I think it was that issue. That was a great moment, and because all this time we knew how much John was missing him and trying to do his best while he was away and not necessarily taking his place, but taking the responsibilities that he had. That was a great moment. Yeah. And to top it off, and the final category is favorite writer. Now I think I know what Dave's is going to be.
Go ahead, Kyle. No, go ahead.
Well, it's by no shocking surprise it'll be Philip Kennedy Johnson. So I think he has, not single-handedly, because they've all been great writers this year. Tom Taylor's been great. Mark Waid obviously is always great. But I think PKJ has brought Superman back into the limelight in a way that doesn't make him feel like you're an outlier for liking him, right? For reading it, like where people look at you and be like, "Oh, you're a Superman fan." It's more like, "Oh, have you been reading it though?" Because holy crap. And I think it's been a long time coming, and so he gets my vote by no shocking surprise. So.
He's deserved it. Sam, how about you?
Yeah, I would also have to say him, but my judgment for the best Superman writer of the year, like Superman writer specifically of the year, is the person who makes me want excited to go to the comic book shop every Wednesday and say, okay, I know, I don't have to reread the previous issue. I know what, let's see what Superman gets up to this week, because I'm really concerned what happens. And I had a lot of that in the Rebirth series, the New 52 series, a lot of during the Bendis run too, and that's happened a lot. And that's definitely happened with Philip Kennedy Johnson, just going back every week for the War World saga pretty much.
Yeah.
To a lesser extent, Mark Waid has also been doing that with World's Finest. I'm eagerly going back for that too. It's eager to see how it plays out. This feels like the first time in a long time we've had a Batman Superman series go on longer than a year, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also it's whoever just does a good job of directing the Superman lexicon without like the main Superman, main line without making it like too boring. Because there's definitely been times like say like in New 52 or reboot where there's been a couple issues that felt like filler or whatever. But War World kept it going without like much that, and that's like huge. That's a huge theory. That's huge for me.
And I think, well, for Philip Kennedy Johnson, it's a clean sweep because he's also my favorite writer. I have put joint with Tom Taylor because Tom Taylor's been doing some amazing stuff as well. Dark Knight of Steel is amazing. Deceased, War of the Undead Gods has been amazing as well, and obviously Son of Kal-El as well, which we've talked about a lot. But Philip Kennedy Johnson, he's like you said, he's brought Superman back. I think he's made Superman cool again. It's. I'm not ashamed to be a Superman fan, but every time I say I'm a fan of Superman, they're like, "Oh, why do you like Superman? What is it about Superman you like?" And Philip Kennedy Johnson pinpointed every single thing about Superman that I love, pretty much. And what also helps is the fact that he's so nice. He's like come on the show several times. I feel like when you have something like that and you have a connection with the actual writer, you kind of have that same connection with the series that they're writing, and yeah, I think it's just been amazing. Like, got to meet him. We kind of feel like we have a personal rapport with him as well as his writing because it's just been amazing so far. And I look forward to what he's doing.
Mark Russell.
Go on.
No, sorry. No, I was just going to say Mark Russell's another honorable mention. If Superman Space Age, if I think it's only running for 3 issues. I mean, it's a big thing. It's Black Label. If the 3rd issue came out before the end of the year, maybe. But I'm still like, that's another one I'm eagerly going to the comic book store every like Wednesday to see if it's out.
Yeah, I think that one's quite spaced apart, isn't it? Because
they did that on purpose, I think, and I don't really know why, but the third issue I think comes out in February.
Okay, yeah. Black Label has like odd release dates, but it's definitely worth talking about.
Sadly, before we go, we've got a few comments who have just joined. Hi, JG. It goes very well. Thank you for joining us on, the first episode for you. And sadly, we are about to wrap up. We're about to wrap up, but we'll let you know when the next episode is going to be, and you can come and join us on the next one and get involved in all the fun as well. Hi to Donovan Davis before we go, who agrees that the Superman books have been great recently. Yes, they have. We've got a lot to look forward to as Superman fans, and I'm sure, I know we're going to be doing these episodes once a month, but we might have to jump on and do a few extra because there's so much Superman content. I don't think we're going to fit it all in like we've struggled to do today. We're almost at the 2-hour mark, so I think it's time to wrap it up. I've got to go back to being a mom. I can hear my kid crying downstairs and it's ready for his bedtime. But thank you everyone for getting involved. It's been a great episode today with all the comments and all the interaction. Thank you for listening live, and for those that are catching up later on, thank you for listening afterwards. We will be back with episode 36. Well, actually, 36 is going to be a special pre-recorded episode, which is going to feature interviews for the Legion of Superheroes. That will be coming out tomorrow. So you don't have too long to wait for the next episode. But then episode 37 will be the other live recording, and that will be sometime in February. And we'll give you information on dates once we have it. But thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome.
Bye, all.
Have a good one.